Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the POP Workshop 2.0. This workshop is organized by the Profession Committee here at PAM, and it's a follow-up from a workshop held in May 2019. My name is David Teo, and I will be moderating our session today. Before we go further, just a bit of housekeeping. I would like to remind everyone to kindly stay in mute to avoid background noise that may distract others from listening and participating in this event. With us today is Salam from Garis Pixel, who will be providing technical support. If you need to alert us to any technical matter, please use the Zoom chat box and we will attend to the technical difficulties you encounter during the program. Okay, without further ado, I would like to invite the chairman of the POP committee and PAM president, Dato' Azumi Hassani Ismail, to give us his welcoming remarks.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, David, for inviting me today. Yes, first of all, I have to congratulate POP committee, promotion of profession committee, my co-chairman, Architect Almas Rahim, and we also have Architect Lilian Tay as the co-chair of the committee, and also Architect Saifuddin. I believe Architect Saifuddin and Lilian Tay is not here with us at the moment. But I think this is the continuation from the previous workshop that we did 2 years ago. That was in 2019, but in 2020, we do not have the opportunity to conduct the POP workshop. This workshop is very important, especially to get the feedback from various sides of practices. And the way that we have structured the workshop for the detailed discussion on the bigger practice, medium-sized practices, and also small practices. Recently, I wrote in the Berita Architect and also in one newspaper publication the issues that are faced by these practices. Different sides of practices actually face different issues. Due to this pandemic, if you look at even before the pandemic, some of our members practices, they already have issues due to economic problem, the downturn, even since 2018, 2019. Some of them has downsizes, some has changed their operation, some reduce in terms of the office overhead, they move office to smaller office, some has changed to less prominent location from in the middle of the city, they move to the outside of the cities to reduce the operation cost. And from our survey in early 2020, we received the feedback that many of our members has to take a lot of measures, including salary reduction and cutting a lot of other overhead expenses as well. So from my observation, there are the three different issues faced by the different sizes of practices. For a big firm, although that many people may say that the big firm always survive this situation, economic situation or pandemic, but the big firm, they have different type of issues. First, the overhead expenses is very high. For a bigger firm, the monthly overhead can be up to millions of ringgit. However, they have a various portfolio. Sometimes this is the saving grace that can help them to go through this turbulence. For example, in the situation where the housing development are put on hold, or there are reduction in housing development, because of the various portfolio, most of the big firm, they still can continue on other things, especially on the infrastructure. Some of the bigger practices they involve in transportation, MRT, LRT, or even some airport. These are the diversified portfolio that usually can save some of the bigger firm. But for the smaller practices, they have different kind of advantages due to small overhead expenses. So, and the agility of the smaller firm, most of the time, the smaller firm actually easier to survive under this situation, economic situation and also pandemic situation. They can change the method of operation very easily. For example, when it is required to work from home, the bigger firm has bigger problem to work from home due to the connectivity, devices availability. But smaller firm is very easy. If you have less than 5 people, it's easier. And in fact, some of them still can do work in the office because there are less space required. But in the cramped, bigger offices with social distancing, they have problem. So they have to limit the number of staff to go to office. The other thing is that the agility of smaller firm give a lot of advantage. They can always change the direction. They can always change the method of operation that to suit the current condition that allow them to survive. But the one in the middle, which is neither big or small, this is the one that usually have a lot of problem. It is not that simple for the medium-sized firm to change the operation or to change their direction. And to save expenses or to cut the overhead expenses also is not easy because the medium-sized firm, the monthly overhead is also quite big. It can be hundred of thousands as well as compared to the smaller practices. The medium-sized firm may have a financial problem during the situation like what we are having at the moment. So we hope that from this workshop, we can gather the feedback, we can understand better what are the issues and what are the steps that we can do to help our members. Okay, to help our members, maybe we can channel the information, the data that we receive today to the government so that government can see better. The approach by the government is always that one solution, try to fit for all problems, try to solve all problems. As we can see that not all the time it works. Sometimes it works for certain type of practices, but not for everybody. And I'd like to share also recently, we have conducted the feedbacks, the public survey. So we received the feedback from the members of public who are also individual project owner and also the developer and the government agency, GLC, private company. So we received various feedback, but generally what I want to share here, in summary, the expectation of the clients today towards the architect are much higher. So they expect that the architect to deliver a convergent services, which that they expect the architect will solve all sort of problems, including getting the authority approval, managing the project, handling the construction at site, even resolving the dispute between the contractors, subcontractors, with employers, and many other things. And far more than that, now the expectation is that for the architect to do the business study as well. So from the feedback that we receive, some of the developer, they expect the architect to come up with solutions, not just to solve problem, but how to drive their company, their developers company further, so that we can offer a good product and also buildings that they can sell better, sell higher, or collect a better return in terms of a rental income. So these are the expectation of the developers today. And from the analysis, I noticed that the developers or the client who have that expectation actually has experience working with foreign architects. And most of the foreign architects that they are working with are from Singapore, Australia, and United Kingdom. These are the major foreign companies, okay, that have worked with a Malaysian developer. So what I can conclude here, from their experience, the developers' experience working with the foreign architect, they try to compare Malaysian architect and the foreign architects. So in summary, they also believe that Malaysian architect can deliver in terms of getting the complying with local requirement, and then to design something which is in line with local culture. They believe that local architect can do better. However, they still believe that the foreign architect can do a better design solution. In terms of design solution, they can offer better service in terms of communication, and sometimes they also use foreign architect to communicate with their client. So it means that they use the branding, they use the brand of the foreign architect sometimes to get to purchaser. So these are the perception of most of the developers. So I hope that today, following the survey, the data that we receive from the survey, so that I hope we can strategize how actually to make our practices, our members, to have a better offer, at least at par with the foreign architect, if not better. So I think please take note, and also please participate with the workshop today. I was informed that we are going to split into 3 different groups today, according to sizes of practices. Then we can discuss into detail on what are the strategies, what are the feedback, and what are the strategies that we should take to improve our service. So hopefully everybody will stay until the end of the workshop, and please give the feedback to us as well on not just the feedback on how to improve things, but how on even the quality of this workshop. We hope that in future we can do, I really hope that in future we can do physical workshop again, so that we can meet face to face. And if the need so, we may also do a hybrid, face to face and also online for our members in the chapters to join as well. So thank you very much. Okay, back to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dato' Izumi. So next, I would like to introduce Architect Alma Salma Abdul Rahim, the convener of today's workshop, to brief us on the program for today. Her presentation will be followed by Architect Azim Aziz, who will be presenting the results of the latest survey on the impact of the MCO and COVID-19 on our firms. So Architect Almas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, Mr. President, council members, esteemed speakers, facilitators, participants, and rapporteurs to the POP Workshop 2.0. Our first workshop, by the way, was on the 10th of May, 2019. Thank you for joining us via Zoom this Saturday morning to once again share our experiences, fears, and hopes for our beloved profession. We postponed this several times as we really wanted a face-to-face session. Our POP, or Promotion of Profession Committee, was first mooted by our immediate past president, A.R. Lilian Tay, to promote our local architectural talent via various means. Can I have this first slide, please? We had a maiden Singgah KL on 6 October 2019, which was a huge success, with 7 buildings visited by 230 people from various backgrounds. Thank you to the building owners and architects who so generously opened the buildings and acted as tour guides. We had to take a rain check in 2020 because of the pandemic, but hopefully it can be revived in 2021 and maintained as an annual event. In March 2020, we produced our first corporate video, The Work of Architects, in collaboration with Martrade. It features award-winning designs as well as gold medalists, A.R. Hijaz Kasturi, Dato' A.R. Kenyang, Dato' A.R. Hajida, and Tan Sri Dato' Sri A.R. Isa. In our vision to be inclusive, we have included Hafiz Amirul, the head of strategic planning of Mercy, our collaboration partners with CSR committee, which is the PAM arm to reach out to the public, and Nura Faf Ismail, an outstanding student who was awarded the Norman Foster RIBA Traveling Scholarship. This video is used by Martrade to promote our profession internationally, and to date, it has been viewed 21,000 times. We started a dedicated email, pop_somf@pam.org.my, to encourage our members to email their concerns pertaining to their practices. Our President, Dato' Izumi Hazani, strongly encourages collaboration between PAM committees. So this term, we worked closely with Professional Practice Committee to produce practice notes. The first practice note this year addresses the practice of developers who pay fees after the launch of their projects, and the reasons why architects should not accept these terms. The next PN will be on the request for proposals, which is being finalized by the Professional Practice Committee. Doubts about our professional scale of minimum fees in relation to the MYCC Competition Act were cast aside after we arranged a meeting between Council and MYCC, who clarified that our Architect Act and rules are independent of the Competition Act. Members were informed of this via the latest Berita Architect. During the last council term, the Research and Futures Committee was set up to carry out research and surveys specifically for our profession. Since that committee was dissolved this year, research is still being carried out within POP, as data is fundamental to any profession to understand where we concur in the midst of an ever-changing scenario. Today, A.R. Azim will share with you the results of the latest survey. Last year in September, we started Malaysian Architect on Facebook, and to date, we have 837 followers. Now the next slide, please. POP's vision has always been to be constructive, with a blue ocean strategy based on the view that market boundaries and industry structure are not a given and can be reconstructed by the actions and beliefs of industry players. We invited today 5 speakers, architects, who have carved out a niche for themselves by thinking out of the box and venturing into architecture-related areas of expertise so that they may inspire and share with us their choice in moving forward. We are pleased to know that we have 74 participants today. After the speakers' presentations today, we will go into the breakout rooms for an hour to discuss the topics that we have outlined and other matters that you may bring up. We would like these discussions to lead to a positive and constructive direction so that we may hand over a recommendation to PAM Council for the way forward. I thank the facilitators, A.R. Chan Seong An, A.R. Mustafa Kamal, A.R. Wan Sophia, Latin Professor A.R. Norina, and Dr. Sharifa for the valuable time this morning. Last but not least, I thank the POP workshop group who volunteered for the weekly brainstorming sessions until we achieved the desired objectives. A.R. David Teo, A.R. Azim, A.R. Cik Wan, Dr. Sharifa, Z.E., Professor Norina, Sufyan, Zamri, and of course our project officer, Mimin Yuslinda. I now hand over to Azim, A.R. Azim Abdul Aziz, to present his analysis of the latest survey. Update survey on the impact of the MCO and COVID-19 pandemic on architectural firms in Malaysia. Over to you, Azim.
Thank you, Architect Almas and Architect David. for having me on this webinar. And I know I have a short time, and I have to condense the survey results into about a couple of slides so that we can just see how the pandemic has affected us during the course of almost 12 months. As you know, the lockdown was on March 18, and now we are March 6, so it's not, it's almost a year for now. And we did during the course of March 18 to December of last year, end of December last year, 3 surveys to look at what has affected us and condense and see what's the most important things that we found out of that survey. I'd like to share some slides of what we have found. Can you see the slides? No. Can you see the slides now? Yeah, you can see the slides. Okay. See, I'll go straight to what we've the context of our profession in Malaysia. As from what we did earlier last year, is to find out how many are practicing in capacity of a sole proprietor, partnership, body corporate, and multidisciplinary practices. As you can see here, we found that about 85% of the ACPs are less than 20 people. That set the context, and we know that the majority of firms here in Malaysia are less than 20 people, and you can deduce from that the number of projects that each of these firms can do in one particular time, a particular year. So the first one that we did was at first quarter, which is of 2020, and we look at that particular time the architect's perception on what during the lockdown, when they declared the pandemic, that for the next 12 months, which it is about now, and then how the perception that that particular time we all did not know how it will pan out. So 85% had a negative impact or perception on how it is going to be. So from there, we know that those who are positive and those are unsure. So in fourth quarter 2020, that has been reduced to 36% from negative, strong negative to strong positive, positive. So I think that I'll go over and explain why that might be. How many projects have been cancelled, expected to be cancelled? From first quarter, the people were saying that there's none, that none that has been cancelled, which is 38%, and then 1%, 1 to 10%, 11 to 25%, 26 to 50%, and you can see that the figure for the second quarter has been reduced, and now the projects have been cancelled. The non-projects have been cancelled has reduced to 12, which means that there's more projects have been cancelled, and the biggest chunk of it is that 1 to 10%, just 23% and 26% to 50% of their project that we're doing prior to the pandemic is also been reduced. So you can see that that has affected the profession and our ability to sustain mainly our staff. So that affects some firms. Majority of it, I think, are big firms, because as you can see, those who are less than 20 people probably had a couple of retrenchment, but most of the big firms probably had to retrench more people than the smaller firms. Having said that, 50%, about 50% of the firms are less than 5 people, so they didn't have much room to retrench people. They have to probably reduce the salary in a way to sustain longer. And I think that was the method that was largely been prescribed to survive longer. Those who are at Q1, the duty performed difficulties covering overheads. And at that time, we did not know how long it would be. So I think there was a survey, 2 surveys or 3 surveys would say that they can last 3 to 4 months of their cash reserve with no money coming in, because at a particular time we did not know that how long the lockdown was going to be. It was about 3 months total lockdown, and now we are slowly opening up. But at Q4 2020, 50% are having from 66 to 50%. This is probably due to many of the firms has let go staff so they can survive longer. And then 50% still have difficulties in surviving the pandemic. And we're not sure that this year, 2021, how long it's going to be. Some people were saying that due to the vaccination, will be only be completed in Malaysia in February of 2022. So are we going to wait for that long until the economy going to in our area? The economy will be recovering to pre-pandemic times. And how many have people been retrenched? How many staff have retrenched? And from here you can see that none has been because this reflects. So when I look at this, it reflects that most of the smaller firms, because as you can see the context saying that most of the firms are smaller, so they have like the president was saying, has easy time to deal with the crisis, and they don't have to reduce their staff that much. As you can see, unlike the 1998 recession where projects stopped, this time the banks are much healthier, and many of the projects that are ongoing are still going on, and from that the firms can draw some money in from their projects that they're currently doing and not completed yet. So from there, you can see that the ongoing projects are still ongoing, unlike 1998, where almost complete. With those who are experienced 97, 98 time when they have a financial crisis, banks were affected, and many projects immediately stopped. So this is different slightly, where most of the jobs are still ongoing and still moving, although they are shut down and lockdowns, they are still going ahead, which means that the bank can still lend money. Okay, that's my last slide, and because I have only 5-6 minutes, there's a lot to look at from all the 3, which later we can go ahead and have a longer assessment on what has transpired during the last year, or probably we need another one more year until the crisis is over, which is projected to be next year, February 2022, after all of us have been vaccinated. Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Architect. Azim, and also thank you to Architect Almas for the short presentations. Okay, maybe you can unshare your screen.
Yes, I'm trying to unshare now. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. So onwards to the next program. Today, we are pleased to have with us 5 speakers who will be speaking briefly about their experience moving forward through the pandemic. The speakers are Architect Dr. Tan Lokman, Technologist Sufyan Shahabuddin, Architect Sharifah Alawiyah Alhabshi, Architect Ahmad Farid Ghaffar, and Dr. Sharifah Salwa Said Mazhar. The first presenter is Architect Dr. Tan Lokman, and his topic today is Designing a Designer's Practice. So over to you, Dr. Tan.
Hi, thanks very much, David. Good morning, everyone. Glad that you're all taking part in this. I'll try and share my screen. Okay, I've been given 10 minutes to just share a bit of my experience. I think firstly, you have to look at it from the current perspective. And I think it's already been mentioned by Azim and of course, PAM President as well. We are now 1 year into the pandemic and there are still ongoing COVID concerns. I believe that as a practice, looking at my own practice, we have entered into a new phase. And this phase is a terrible phase. It's like you're under siege, you know, if you look at World War II and Stalingrad and Leningrad, they were like three-year-old, you know, they spent 3 years of a siege. And then now we are dying of starvation. The adrenaline has gone. We have run out of insulin shots. And now is the time where the cash flow will really be affected. And, you know, the analysis that we have done in our office is that this pandemic is going to last 3 to 5 years. The first year was probably shock and honeymoon. And then now it's the really the tough times. So that's where we are at. The business environment has been badly affected. Of course, politically, we are also a bit rudderless. I think government has tried its very best. It's done some good things. It's missed a few points, but generally we are intact as a country. But we need good leadership. Looking at our neighbor, especially Indonesia and Vietnam, where you see that they have sort of plowed on with great vision. I think the unique thing about this time is that in previous years, when there were massive recessions or downturns, we have been able to work overseas. In the 2007 time, we were in Dubai and the Middle East. Then earlier times, we could go to China and so on. This time, we are unable to travel. So if your office had not made contacts with regional people, you know, it's very hard to meet people over the internet. There's trust is something that needs to be built over years of friendship and networking. So I think, you know, institutes like organizations like Acacia, UIA, they need to come into play a lot more, because that's where we met. Most of us met our business partners from overseas, and that's where we network. I think now that we are totally locked down, it's going to start to be a quite important telling point. There's been rapid changes to all sectors: IT, AI, privacy, retail, work. All this has affected our business in a sense that work from home has decimated the office space. Retail, you know, if you go back, everyone has rushed back to the shopping malls, but you see only F&B doing well and at reduced numbers. And you find that the shops that are selling things have, you know, if you haven't gone online, you're going to be wiped out. So there's accelerated obsolescence. Things that worked before are not going to work anymore. And unfortunately, there's going to be increased competition because the pie has become smaller. Okay, so these are the current situation. And then I'll go into designing a designer's practice. I think very important, I'll just run through it quickly. I only got 10 minutes. I always believe that we should see the big picture. We should develop an all-season program for a lifelong journey. Architecture is not just about surviving the next 5 years or just doing work at the prime of your life up to 50 years old and then you retire. I'm from very old school. I believe that I'm in this business and in this profession till I'm 120 years old, like some of Oscar Niemeyer and all these guys. Because I love the work that I do. And people keep asking me why you still work hard and why you still stay in the office so late. And I tell them that I like the work that I do. I'm passionate about it. And I continue to believe that I'll continue to do great work even as I get older. It's not at 55 and I retire. So I think it's important to always have a big picture. And when you're young, as you're starting our practice, I always tell people it's always easy to start a practice, but it's very hard to get out of a practice. A lot of people start a practice after you pass your part 3, the 3 forms of practices, and now you've got 4 forms. And you get one big project, and then you ask your old schoolmate and say, wait, why don't you join up and let's, and then after 10 years and everyone is very rich and then they behave like what they are supposed to be, then you find the partnership falls apart. I think those are things that you must keep in mind when you draw this big picture. So when I was young, I already plotted where I was going to go in my career. And that's why I have a big picture for 120 years. Nothing is going to knock me down. And this one was something, the next one, I learned too late in life. I was so busy working and doing, and I forgot to differentiate and define myself. And I think I only started to come into this a lot more in the last maybe 12 years or 10 years. You can do everything because as architects, we are jack of all trades, but eventually you need to differentiate who you are. Like some people are very good in politics. Some people are very good at negotiating contracts. Some people are very good at designing. Everyone should be able to design. Let me say that first. You should be able to resolve staircases. You should be able to resolve clashes and headroom. You should do a ramp. You should do a nice lobby. You should be able to design great spaces. Everyone should be able to do that. That is the definition of an architect. But somewhere along the line, you must learn to differentiate. Not every job is good. Not every project is good. Not every client is good. If you don't like the client, don't waste your time arguing with them. Just walk away. And that's what a professional is. You hire me or you fire me. It doesn't matter. I'll just walk away and get another job. I think the next word was define. And I started off trying to define myself in 50 words. And it was so hard. Then as the years went by, I tried to define myself in 1 paragraph. And now I find I need to define myself as I go along to maybe 3 words or 4 words. Some people, you look at them and you say, he's a bastard. Sorry for the word, but that's 1 word definition of him, because you see that's what he is. You look at Elon Musk and the word that I define him as genius. So somewhere along the line, your friends and your colleagues define you better than you define yourself. And most people don't know who they are unless they ask their friends. And some of your friends, especially your wife, will tell you exactly who you are. The next one is dare, then develop, do, and don't give up. I think my mistake when I started my designer's practice was I could do the dare, I could develop, I could do, and definitely we were doing. We kept doing, and we never gave up. Like now, we are going through a hard time, but we will never give up. But I forgot the first two, differentiate and define. I wish I had learned that earlier. Then I believe I would not have wasted so much of my time, and I would not have got aggravated by bad clients or mixing with the wrong people. Okay, so tune into the future. We must always look into the future because that's where architecture is headed. Architecture designs the cities of the future, and they design the workplace of the future. They design the recreational places of the future. We must always be in tune with that. I started meeting people who told me about Bitcoin like 6 years ago. And when I first met them, I couldn't figure it out. And to today, I really cannot figure it out, but it is the future. And whether you like it or not, you have to start to look at it. Because I believe in the next generation, if not my generation, we will become a space spacefaring people. That's why in 2019, when I did CLAF, I tried to introduce us to Mars. And there's a lot of technology, and I believe a lot of world resources will start to go towards transforming the human race into a spacefaring people. And if we don't go out there as architects and town planners and designers, you're going to get cities that are going to be designed by scientists and engineers. And we know what they will end up being. So I've always had my eye on the future, and I really believe that we will end up being a spacefaring people. The next one is collaborate and learn from the best. I think I had the privilege to work under Dato King Tun Lu when I first came back. And the guy was extraordinary. He commanded a lot of respect, and whenever he came into a meeting or a room, people just knew that, hey, this guy was special. And all through the years, I've always tried to, when I meet somebody and I know they are very good at something, they might have character flaws and so on, but I will try and lean onto them and learn from them. And when I'm in trouble, I will ask them for advice because they are good at that particular thing. When I go fishing, I used to be very much into fishing. Now, not so much time. The 5% of people catch 95% of the fish. And today, recently, I went fishing a couple of years ago. I insisted on bringing one of these guys with me because I wasn't sure whether I would catch a fish because I haven't fished for so long. But I would be sure that this guy will catch a lot of fish so that we will come back from the trip with a lot of fish. So there are some people who are really good at what they do. They have found a place in God's plan and they are doing well. I believe we must read, write, draw, build, and share more. I emphasize read because we have stopped reading. We have become a generation of TikTok watchers. We have failed to write. we cannot write letters. And I look at, I learned very early on that we must be able to write. If you cannot write and read contracts and be able to deal with contractual matters, I think you'll get stuck in somewhere along the line of this big picture plan of yours. I still believe that you must be able to draw. I know the new generation are all into PAM and Revit and SketchUp, but if you cannot draw, you cannot feel. And if you cannot feel your architecture, it sort of loses its life. And when you look at your building, the proportions and the scale and the detailing becomes very brash and unrefined. And I think that we should continue to always build. We are starting a small little project because my office, we look at the big picture. I've always been in a shop house, and in the back lane, we got this small little recess, and I challenge my staff to put on, pick up their power tools and build a little cantina, because we are all eating in the office now, and we try to spread out on the ground floor in the meeting rooms so that we get the social distancing. And I was thinking, why don't we just build our own little cantina in the back, open air with a green wall, with plants, with edible herbs all around us? Wouldn't it be much nicer than just spending 1.5 hours facing a wall? So we must build. I put the last one in, sharing. I find that I have always gained by giving, and I never stop giving. And I've always given to the profession. I've given to PAM. When I get invited to speak, sometimes I'm not so strong on that topic, but I will still accept. I will research it and I'll do it. I believe that by giving, we get back. And God is no man's debtor. He will never owe you more than you can give. And I learned that from my religious background, but as well as that, I've learned it in sharing. You must always serve. And those who serve in PAM, council, and so on, I salute you for your time. I know it's not easy. Meetings are long, but always look at the positive side of it. Don't lean on the negative. I believe that there's been too much negativity around, and especially at this time of the COVID, I cheer up my staff. I always, when I can, I buy them Jago. We order Texas chicken, and we try and cheer people up. And that's the next point I want to go to. I believe we should cherish the moments, celebrate them, and mark them as moments in time. When you are young, there are a lot of moments in time. You had the great party, you caught the biggest fish, your friends turned 21 and then they got married. They were all exciting times and they were like landmarks in your memory. As you get older, you win less awards. you lose more competitions than you win. But when you win one, even if it's a mention or a shortlist, celebrate it, mark it, just say, wow, you know, it was a great effort because the competition out there is great. Celebrate it, cherish it, mark it, because they are important. They are important stones that you put along, you know, marker stones that you put along that big picture life of yours. And the last one I want to just touch on is professionalism. Honesty and integrity will make us stand out from the rest. We picked up a lot of work after we came out of the MCO last year in May and June. And I tried to reflect back why these clients came back to me. Some I haven't seen for 3 to 5 years. And I get a call out of the blue and they say they want to meet up. And I tend to think that it's because they are down to their last million or 10 million and they dare not take a risk. And they want to trust somebody that can be trusted. Now, I'm not vouching that I can be trusted, but I'm saying that as a professional, we have, you know, the keyword and the banner over our shop, our profession, the signboard. You know, when the Chinese used to start a shop, they always put some Chinese words at the front, and it tells of what they are, their integrity, their honesty, their benevolence. And I think that as a professional, we have always had this banner over us that we can be trusted, we are honest, and we live a life of integrity. And I think that these are what I believe is a designer's practice in my narrow perspective. And I hope it's been helpful for you. I'll leave it to question and answer and maybe discussions in the groups later. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'll pass it back to David.
Thank you, Dr. Tan, for your inspiring words to start off the discussions today. Next, we would like to have a presentation by technologist Sufyan Shahabuddin of Six Design Office, and his topic is digital transformation and exporting services. Over to you, Sufyan.
Thank you, David. Let me just share my screen. Just want to take this opportunity to thank the Institute for allowing me a short time just to share some of my insights. And it is a sharing session. Unfortunately, I don't have any beautiful sketches like Dr. Tan was saying, but I'll try to share a little bit in terms of our experience and what we've done in the past years or so. My name is Sufyan, and I am part of two businesses, one Aki Crafts Sendirian Berhad and also Six Design Office. If you're familiar with the collaboration between Supreme and LV Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton would be kind of like the mainstream established brand, and Six is more of I think the edgy new kid on the block. So that's pretty much a quick definition of who we are. So I've been privileged to work abroad during this time. We've entered competitions, worked on many different types of buildings, and I think it's again building up that network of people that's allowed me to kind of have a slightly wider reach. But it's through this, it's more of a learning experience that that I've gained through, and some of my business partners as well. It's actually establishing, I think, just a working relationship, but also just having the experience and sharing it to have better value. We've done a range of projects, mostly big ones, smaller ones, and then complicated ones, but they all accumulated to where we are now. So back in 2013, we kind of came back and we kind of looked at the market of where we wanted to be, but it came from a background of having worked on complex buildings. Some of them were hospitals, large institutional projects, but they were in the framework of something that's built upon a digital framework, being very data rich and a lot of information. So it's learning about how to work around these processes, And we always have a saying that we build it twice. Once we build it virtually, and again we build it physically. So it's been proven in time in terms of the projects as well. And it's something that back in 2013 we thought we'd come back to Malaysia and start sharing with everyone, and that's pretty much what we've been doing. So we've been on this series of looking at our experiences and seeing how we can further benefit it. So when we've worked on these projects, a lot of it were on BIM, and of course they created these legacy models which were then passed on to the clients, and then they kept on using it. So for example, this particular project, my project was just the one below, but then it was passed on to another architect, and they used the model where they could actually start building another hospital 6 stories on top while the hospital was still operating. So having this experience and working abroad, when we came back, I think we asked the question of what was different. What was different? And I think we were also looking at, we were reminiscing at some of these projects and seeing so maybe we didn't enjoy as much some of the projects here, but then they were slightly different as well. So we posed the question of high value versus high productivity. And there's a saying that you kind of go follow the money. So I think in this time of the pandemic, we should just take a step back and just look at where are the high value nations, and maybe we could look beyond our borders because of that shrinking pie. So again, I think when we were posing the question, if we look back, these are data and statistics that on the Akadis website, and they kind of show that even in our country, Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur is probably the 4th cheapest place to build. So in essence, in terms of value, that puts us not at the high end of the high value range. So what does this mean? I think when we move forward and when we're looking at digital platforms, making us a lot more efficient, transparent, and better products, you look at these places and you see the impact of technology and what it has on them. So of course, I think the more developed nations are using more of technology in terms of BIM, etc., and the lower value places but maybe high productivity are using less. So with that, I think we also looked at the trends, the current trends in the industry out there, what's making these changes. Of course, BIM is one of them, but then there's other things such as data analytics. Dr. Tan was mentioning cryptocurrency, there's drones, virtual realities, and smart sensors. So these are all things that are already making an impact internationally. And these are actually all rooms for us to get into. So you break it down, you look at how I think innovative leaders are taking these opportunities and moving ahead with them, but there's also the amount of awareness which is still lacking, and I think this is part of what we're doing today. And of course, like I was saying, BIM is taking that surge. So in the past few years as well, even since 2011, it's been on a sharp rise. And I think even locally, there's been a lot of pressure and also a lot of advocacy for us to use it. But I think because of the opportunities, we should really jump on it. So it is looking back at the context and the questions that are posed, looking at our basic services, and then seeing how we could actually impart on it and finding these niche areas. So I think it's looking at high value services within the traditional scope. So when we have identified these services, they're mostly on a digital platform. Experiencing COVID and the pandemic, I think everyone's virtual, working from home, and that capacity is there. So I think in summary, it's sort of looking at how do we find the solutions and how do we use this solution to help others, and maybe even to kind of look at ourselves and how we could use that as a better tool. So with us, we've used BIM. Often people think, especially developers and clients, they think BIM is a magic tool when most often they're not. It's not. It's actually for us, having the experience of working in my previous office, it took them probably 15 years just being in a 3D documentation background, another 8 years just to build up the whole BIM environment, which BIM has, the word BIM probably even didn't exist back then. So it was building it up. And I think I've benefited from going through that process. So a lot of firms have gone through that process in the last number of years. And I think it's something, a skill set that can be shared as well. And it's a skill set that can be, I think, promoted and used outside as well. So what is BIM? BIM is sort of managing a lot of data, and it's using that data and actually using it efficiently. This is what a lot of people are looking for nowadays. What people are saying is data is the new oil. And because of that, we have to use and harness data efficiently, especially in our projects. And we have to look at better ways of optimizing the potential of not only architecture design, but standardization. And this is kind of where I think in a 3D environment, you're not only making these sort of abstract models, but they're actually intelligent models within the actual digital environment itself. So I think what's important as well is we start learning from the manufacturing industry. We've kind of been in a situation where I think the traditional way of building architecture, especially in Malaysia, hasn't really caught up to the manufacturing industry. So how can we use the digital focuses and experience and kind of transfer that into matching another type of high performance industry? So it is looking at building a chassis or a framework and trying to use that consistently and repeatedly, but the innovation is kind of on the exterior and I think other areas rather than creating the wheel again and again. So with us, in an ideal working environment, I think we'd like to push that in front, and this works with a ideal BIM workflow. So you always have something that's standardized in terms of your templates, your components, etc. And then you start sort of very high resourcing, and then you kind of way down a little. So I think that's where it's looking at producing very high impact and high quality models at the very beginning, so it outlasts the span. And that's what's happening abroad as well. So they try to get all the information in at the very beginning of projects during the design stage, so it becomes very easier and cost effective, less discrepancies when they're constructing it. So what we do is we offer an efficient resourcing solution. So for example, this is where we come in. We work with collaborations. So rather than I think highly developed nations which are very expensive in terms of their resourcing, there's an opportunity for Malaysians to go out abroad and actually help them but also benefit us as well. So the workflows that I think we've introduced can be, especially during this COVID time, it's quite similar, but it's only on a virtual platform. So looking at coordinating drawings, etc., working with people, talking through problems, and I think even sharing stories to reinforce that relationship and network, I think is something that we is not only selling design but selling culture, but making Malaysian culture part of contemporary culture. So it's something to go beyond, learning from the Koreans as well. So the way they see it is it's an affordable option. For us, I think we focus on the high value, and because there is that opportunity to meet in the middle is something that we can offer as a unique service abroad. So normally they would be spending €1 for a person. You can actually spend that €1 for 3 very good Malaysians, for example. And I think it's definitely possible now. Of course, Malaysia being a Commonwealth country, we speak very good English, and I think some of these more highly developed nations are English-speaking countries. or even we're also very close with China, and I think that's a background that we can exploit. I think having worked abroad, that helps us as well. And of course, the metric system is something that can be utilized elsewhere, especially with the infrastructure that we have currently. Allows us to be doing more than what we conventionally do. Why it benefits us, I think it is taking the industry to the next level. We want that international exposure. I think we always want to update our knowledge and make sure we have best practice procedures in place by working with other business partners abroad, and it allows us to become industry experts by being at the forefront of the types of projects that we normally do. And it makes us export ready, and that's what we definitely need in this time and day and age, where there's no time to kind of sit back, but you just have to take those opportunities and run. So again, I think it's looking at questioning what our traditional services are and finding the opportunities in terms of new technology, how we can inject or kind of supplement these existing framework. So I think there's a lot of room for collaboration. There's a lot of room for expansion, but we have to be looking beyond, not only beyond architecture, beyond our own boundaries, and actually working together and doing a lot more sharing. Again, once that's kind of sort of done, we sorted out all the basic frameworks. The money is in or are in projects that are innovation focused, the projects that are transitioning digitally, and of course projects that maximize the supply food chain and looking at exploiting manufacturing potential. So this is all the opportunities, and this is where the money is going, and we should be focusing on these types of industries rather than maintaining an old formula, which is slightly more traditional. So I think that's 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sufyan, for your interesting presentation. I'm sure there will be some questions by the participants later. Moving on, we have to introduce the next speaker. Next, we'll have architect Sharifah Alawiyah Al-Habshi of Design Works Architects and Consultants, who will be speaking on the necessity of reinventing yourself or business to stay relevant. Over to you, Architect Sharifah.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Sharifah Alawiyah Al-Habshi from Design Works Architects. My practice has been in about 25 years now. We have been always almost small, medium, small, going back and forth about that for the last 20 years or so. So basically, Almas asked me to come and share my experience of having evolved from the traditional professional practice to what I'm doing today, which is still the traditional professional practice and some other things as well, because I feel that during these challenging times, even before the pandemic, I've already made these changes in my career because I felt that I really needed this change, because for 20 years, our economic activity has been quite robust, and the architects have been doing a lot of property developers work, which is what we've been doing. And I think I was a little bit burned out by that. After doing it for 15 to 18 years, I was like, no, I cannot do this anymore. Thankfully, everything has gone very well, but I need to move on to something else. That's when I started doing design and build projects. I registered myself as a contractor, as a licensed contractor, and slowly did more and more work on my own with my team. Then I felt that I needed this change, and so Alma said, why don't you share it with everybody, especially now that we are going through these challenging times. So here we are. I feel that the necessity of reinventing ourselves is very, very relevant, you know, in this climate, in this economic climate, and this changes that we're going through. Just now, Azim mentioned about, and also Dr. Tan mentioned about the projects going abroad, and also Sufyan also mentioned that. But we are talking about maybe the 10% or the 15-20% at most. The rest of us, 80%, the smaller practices, are really doing work that is largely only in Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia, and smaller projects. So this is where we need to be a little bit more creative beyond our drawing boards. So first step of, you know, trying to do some construction, being a contractor and enjoying it as well. And it started also because of dealing with some very contractors that drive you crazy as well. So you have to find ways to work around it. So that's what we did. And then we enjoyed that and we moved on to other things. Okay, so for example, there are many ways architects can apply themselves without always having just to do architecture drawings or consultancy. So there are ways that we can apply ourselves by going, especially now, I think this is very relevant. We don't need as many traditional architects as such, but we need support businesses that can support our industry, and it will be better if architects are in these businesses because they have the eye, the training, and all, so on and so forth. So as we move along, and then we need to search ourselves, we need to search inside ourselves for what we can do to be part of our industry. Not all of us are cut out to be architects, the traditional conventional architects, but we love our career, we love design, we love dealing with things that are related to our buildings and design. So this is where we can move on to other things, even for example, landscaping. We can go into nurseries and so on and so forth. That's a different aspect of it. So retail is one aspect of going into different kinds of architecture related businesses. And we see more and more people going into food and beverage, where you can also put your own personal touch. You see the difference between an architect's restaurant maybe and maybe a lawyer's restaurant, because this is a stereotype that I'm using as an example, of course. This is where we can inject that excitement and passion. This is why I say we have to search inside of ourselves for that clear idea of what our passions are, whether we want to do retail, do light, specialize in that, or whether we want to go into F&B, or whether we want to go into landscaping and parks and restaurants in parks, for example. These are things which we need to search inside ourselves, and we can manifest these ideas in a better way. Next slide, please. Okay, and then we also can go into corporate world, where we can play a part in the corporate world, where we can steer property development instead of accountants telling us what to do, instead of engineers telling us what to do and how to build. We need more architects in there. Planners are also playing a role in there, but architects are visibly missing in the development world, where they matter, where they can play a role, where they can mold certain lifestyle, like we discussed earlier, Dr. Tan also mentioned. I think this is very important, and architects are visibly missing. Maybe we are too busy with our drawings, I think this is where we need to think out of that screen, that drawing board, the before, now it's the screen. I think this is where the change needs to happen. Next slide. Then we can go into restoration projects. We can go into hospitality, which which is also not separate. Instead of just being an architect appointed by a developer or an entrepreneur, for example, we should be that entrepreneur. This is what all my slides are saying. We are that entrepreneur. We, the architect, are the entrepreneur, not we are doing the ID, the fitting out, the architecture, and then we disappear. We will disappear ourselves as a professional if we just do a 6-month job, if we just do a 1-month job. Where are we going to find the next job? So we need to see ourselves as the entrepreneur that has the ability to do this and take the project, the business into another level, and we run that business as well. So this is becoming more and more common amongst architects. I've seen many hotels, many boutique hotels, and more resorts that are being done by architects. Can I have the next slide, please? And this is another young, very young architects in their 20s. And they decided, I think they realized that working in an architect's office and drawing a salary and staying late nights is not their thing. So they collaborated, they got an investor, and they've been building the budget hotels. Well, at the age of 26, 28, they were already doing things like this. I think this is something that our education has already prepared us for, only but they did not teach us the business part of it, the business savvy of being an architect. They only taught us how to draw, how to design. So this is where I feel we need this change, and especially relevant at times like this. But again, like I said, this has been a journey that you have to search within yourself. You have to search for that clarity, and you have to search for that courage, because we did not learn how to do this. You have to commit to it, and you just have to pull it through, and it's very enjoyable. So what I have done now with my slow evolution from traditional consultancy to being a licensed contractor, and I've also gone to Langkawi and I've done a boutique development there for a boutique resort, and then we can also look at some alternative. Now, having worked through the pandemic, we have the option also of seeing how people can work outside of Klang Valley in a healthier environment. So that's the next step. Why do we need to be in KL, which has the highest number of cases? Okay, so you can go to Langkawi, you have high-speed Wi-Fi, you can work for 2 months and cost less than staying in KL. So this is another approach. So what I'm trying to say is architects generally have been too pigeonholed into this drawing and services. I think we need to spread our wings and fly higher, whether we are sparrows or we are eagles, doesn't matter, we can still fly, we can go places. We're not stuck like this. Oh, when the economy is bad, oh, we're stuck. Oh, when there's a pandemic, we're stuck. No, we don't need to be stuck. Not if we can think out of the box, and we can move on with the same training without changing our passion. This is our passion. We want to keep doing architecture. For example, there are seniors or older people who are not invalid. Yeah, then they don't need to be in a wheelchair. They need retirement homes, and that's another place outside of Klang Valley that we can develop with small boutique developments of maybe 20 units, or in Langkawi. What a lovely place to grow old, in a healthy environment, fresh air, going for a walk on the beach. It's good for them. So this is something to look at. There's so many options, and we really need to open our minds, and then open our minds outward, but look inward and see who we want to be and what we can do, instead of just resort to what we've seen during the pandemic. All the airline staff, the crew staff, always only selling food and all that. Yes, because that's a temporary measure. But we as architects, we need to see, okay, what do we do 6 months, 1 year from now? Time to evolve and grow into someone else and still be able to be an architect. And this is my sharing for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Architect Sharifah, and apologies earlier, we had some technical difficulties because there are two Sharifahs presenting today and they missed out the second slide. So anyway, so
Okay.
thanks to you for our next speaker is Architect Ahmad Farid Ghaffar, or Farid Ghaffar Architect. He will be speaking on value-adding architecture, consultancy practice, and with digitalization, I suppose. So over to you, Architect Farid.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and good morning to Yang Berbahagia Dato' Izumi, AR Almas, respected fellow speaker AR Dr. Tan, Saudara Sufian, AR Sharifah, Dr. Sharifah Salwa, AR David Teo, and facilitator and architecture graduates and guests. Thank you, PAM Pop, for this workshop. I am Farid Ghaffar from Farid Ghaffar Architect. We are actually a mid-sized firm, very young practice, and also young team. What post-COVID has challenged us is that last year we have a lot of questions, a lot of questions, how to actually move on with our practice. So we are local, and we would say we are nobody. So actually we look at our skills, and then we dream, and finally we restart our journey. So we are actually would like to share that we are very excited. We actually value adding our ACS with our existing client with digital. So by using IR4 technology, because most of our staff are all very good at IR4 technology, and we are actually applying this to what we call a gig economy platform as an alternative service to our ACS, Architectural Consultation Services. And this has since then has created a lot of opportunities for us. So I think what's interesting is that we had an accreditation exercise with Sirim Venture 2 days ago. And when we look at our slides, so this POP is actually like telling ourselves what we have been doing for 2 years since pandemic COVID-19. So we actually in 2016 we already converted ourselves into digital by using a lot of drones in our practice. So then we move on into what we call integrated video reporting to our clients, whether government or private. We do both, regardless of the size of the projects. So then last year we actually jumped ourselves. We combined a lot of these skills, and we have actually brainstormed 21 apps, and we completed 4 apps out of 1 year exercise. So from SD, DD to CD, now we call it CIM and FC. So each of these architectural consultancy service, we converted our conventional services into a digital form, specifically apps. So we actually have designed our own seamless digital ACS, Architectural Consultancy Services, system that we call FGA for COD, FGA for Cloud on Duty. So the dream that we have is actually a create without borders, creativity and IT combined without outside the box. Actually, that's what we have been doing for the past year. So I think what we try to do, I think we try to make digital consultancy user-friendly, reachable, easily understood for basic consultancy firm like sole proprietor, simple client and developer projects like affordable housing. We have been doing a lot on that, and basic contractors. So also on the other stakeholder, and also a common end user. We also design apps for a user to do their defect complaint. So I think these are actually quite comprehensive. So through this short video that we are going to show, let us share our story about our excitement in materializing out of the box vision into reality. We call it seamless digital architectural consultancy services.
Tak payah lagi. Tengah buat apa tu?
Tak ni, tengah tengok report. Ni semua tak tally. Memang salah.
Sekarang kita guna apps LGA sekarang. Ya, aku tunjuk kau.
Ya.
Ya. Ni.
Oh.
All right, that's a bit of our videos. So I would like to end on my talks on these two photos that keep reminding us of what our client has challenged us and has warned us. So I think I'll show the first image. This is what our client has consistently challenged us during our practice. So we have actually convinced our client of our digital, and successfully I think we are successfully in calming our client about this with this. We look at the ACS. Then we actually digitally pick and look at whichever can actually value added to our ACS and turn it into apps. So we have actually completed the team and the FC portion of the apps. Now we are actually building up the rest of the service. So I think the last video actually we show of our existing services outside our ACS that actually been consistently giving us a survival for these 2 years with like we are now doing e-showroom for the client. So these are all actually an opportunities embracing digital at this juncture to help us survive this post COVID-19. So I think with that I end, and thank you very much for PAM for giving us the opportunity for this sharing session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Architect Farid. It was an impressive video. Everyone was messaging me, does he have a slide? Then you video presentation, so it's all self-explanatory. So thank you so much for that. So our next speaker, or final speaker actually, for this morning, before we go into the breakout groups, is Dr. Sharifah Salwa Said Mazhar. Her topic this morning is Space Syntax in Theory and Practice, Value in Urban Architectural Spaces. So over to you, Dr. Sharifah.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And Assalamualaikum. And salam greetings. Good weekend. Working weekend for everyone. Very inspiring lectures this morning. And I always ask myself, why am I here? All these practitioners earlier, I'm not practicing. So basically, the slides I'm going to have probably later on will be more of an educational, I suppose, something like this. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So basically, okay. Next. Okay. Yeah. So I am again. I've been tasked basically to share my thoughts here on the topic of the space syntax in theory and practice, value in urban and architectural spaces. Yeah. So pardon me in earlier, because maybe some of the work that I'm preparing 82 slides, and I'm trying to do this in 10 minutes. Okay, David, you time me out. All right, so basically looking back of the topic, and as well as the purpose of the POP of the workshop this morning is actually trying to find a way forward. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so it's a way forward and how we can operate. And many of these lectures earlier mentioned just that. And I think we are all in the same boat. Though I'm not practicing, but I'm also kind of like doing something like, at the border, kind of like in between tools here, as well as also from the Space Syntax London as well, though I'm teaching at UTM. Yeah. So basically, a lot of work that has been done is more on digital work, and the topic today is the space syntax value of space. And I hope I don't offend anyone, because talking about value of space to architects, what am I talking about here? Yeah, so pardon me for that. So it is also a sharing session for me. Yeah, my aim. Next, yes. So my aim. The aim of the workshop, and now my aim myself, is just about exposing and sharing, and hopefully to strengthen the relation between the academic and industry, research and design. Yeah, and I know many of us have done this but I'm just here to share again, and perhaps to remind us all, remind myself, especially to get out there and outreach and trying to reach out to the industry more. Okay, next. Yes, next. So what is space impact? Yeah, questions coming. And next, one on the value of space impacts. Yeah, value of space impacts. Value of space in space impacts. What do I mean by that? Next. So what does space impacts do to the value of space? I use this particular cartoon because, you know I'm talking to my students normally. They are all little rascals, yeah, something like this. And I really like this picture myself. So how we relate theory to practice in urban space as well as architectural spaces. Next. So overviews, space impacts, though it's digital, but it's a human-centered. According to our late Professor Bill Hillier, the pioneer, his own word is a science-based, human-centered. That's what he said. But it's not easy, but that's what he said. Okay, next. So in research, space impacts, space impacts has been done, to help, basically, for Bill to help architects, basically. If you attend his lecture, maybe some of us have done so. Bill is the mathematician who is actually there to say architects do not know how to value space. A lot of his students are architects in practice. Yeah, I was also an architecture student at that time myself. Yeah, but anyway, so that's him because he's a mathematician. But he has his reason for that. I'm not the one who can say that. So anyway, to help and build specific, talking about to help architects to simulate the likely effects of their design, understanding design through who occupying the space and the people who move around the space. That's what we said. So in practice, it provides an evidence-based design tools to help architects to simulate their work and their design decision-making. Okay, so the phenomena on this digital spirit of space impacts and all that, I call it network of things. Unlike Farid just now, similar is the Internet of Things is the thing that we've done, the things that we know. But in my case, I call it network of things. Simply because to Bill, he argues architecture and urban design, both in their formal and spatial aspects, are fundamentally configurational. Yeah. So you cannot see the parts. You cannot see the parts to put together without saying it as a whole, meaning no things can be worked alone in isolation. I think somehow we practice that as well ourselves, but Bill turns this into a theory and a practice. Next. So it is spatial configuration, the network of things. It is about spatial configuration. Yeah. Again, I must emphasize, this is just a sharing session. I'm a lecturer, so I give lectures to students as well. But I hope I don't bore you. But this is actually what's just to expose to some of you. And I believe amongst us there are amongst us who are actually done this and have seen the work themselves. Yeah. So it is fundamentally configurational. Yeah, the network of space, there are many aspects of space. You can break them down into components. You can break down in terms of choices. You can study and analyze in terms of segments, in terms of visibility in space, legibility of space, and all will be represented in maps and graphs. Yeah, it will give results on the connectivity and integration. So you look at the space from the local and the global and vice versa. So that is spatial configuration theory. Next. So space impacts address, and it has been done for more than 40 years now, is on the social, economic, and environment. It has already done work studying on patterns of movement, land use and land value, crowds, health, density, awareness, interaction, urban growth, societal differentiation, meaning that if there is a place which is segregated, place which is isolated, place which is actually highly integrated. I think this measure is being used by the developers a lot when they're trying to promote a certain development. Okay, this one you go to this highway, this is connected to this, and you got 4 junctions of highway, so you have all this, whatever it is, means of access to allow access, yeah? Going from anywhere, so to speed your move in the city by driving in Malaysia. Okay, so, sorry about that. One second. So just the picture on the left just now was just about Tate Gallery, something that I was also involved when I was a student as well. It's just a study about the pattern of movement in the Tate Gallery. Many of us here, I think, are familiar with Tate Gallery in London as well. So we went into the gallery, we just went in normally, you know, before me studying space syntax. But then after that, when I, with the space syntax group, and then we study, oh, okay, this movement and why certain area is actually being used, being visited a lot more than the others. So these are being explained through the methodology. Okay, next. Spatial configuration. Okay. So what are the value in theory? So the 3 basic conceptions of space through space syntax methodology. Yeah. Theoretical value of space. The first one, A, is actually people moving in line. The second one is people in a box or in a convex space, enclosed space. And the third one is actually a visual field called isovis, yeah, which has a different shape. Because we don't realize this is actually, our vision is actually being demarcated by the spatial form where we are within, we are located in, yeah? So next. Right. So what are the values in space? It is actually, for space, just now was theory, making the invisible visible. I had problem when I was students. Why is architecture so intangible? So I think space syntax helped me. We have a lot of designers here. So converting and merging the intangible and theoretical concept with a tangible empirical value. So we use the mathematical graph theory. You know, there is a mathematical calculation on topology of space. So we come up with an empirical value, computer simulation. Then we can analyze, describe, explain, synthesize, and design. Next. So it is actually, when I ask students as well, it's more of a data-driven, yeah? That is really something what space syntax has been doing since 1980s, something like this. And that is why I can't really get myself detached from them, because I always learn. And also these software, if you want to say, or this technique, technology, method, and theory evolves. So they provide spatial modeling for planners, architects, you know, for better design, to help for me and my students as well as designers to come up with ideas and defend our case more objectively. We have seen a lot earlier in the earlier speakers, what they were saying. And space syntax is doing just that. Yeah, so this is just the samples, yeah? On the left, the integration measures. So we have yellows, we have colors, and students enjoy doing this as well. We have colors. When they do design, they can provide colors as well, yeah? Choice, because never thought in my mind before. I think some of us, our Dr. President earlier mentioned, some of the big architects probably involved in transportation, they might use this, I'm not so sure, yeah? But anyway, I am sure there is also the transport group as well, also work closely with the space syntax group, yeah? Okay, and the next one. So the question here, all these theories, whatever choice measures and all that, how do we turn these values of space into theory to practice? Yeah. Okay. So I owe to some of the work done by Space Syntax Limited London, and they're very kind to agree to lend me some of the work. Yeah. Just to show the audience. So in some of the work that we've done, in turning theory to practice here. So we can count pedestrian movement, we can count vehicular movement, we can also correlate. Last week I gave presentation for PAM CPD, talking about regression analysis. Yeah, and for us architect, I'm talking about from my students' point of view as well. We're not very familiar with the word regression, correlation. What do we mean by that? So I love this. That's why I am involved in space and facts, because I'm not that very empirical person, but I think it gives me some kind of like more tangible things to look at, to define my case. And I think a lot of our students need that too, because design is a very subjective. When you have something positive, objective, it can give you a certain level of confidence to define the case. So this is what the practice said. Yeah, once we have the correlation, we can see the value on the left, 0.58, the value on the right, 0.5. What does it mean? So meaning that these are, you know, the one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So just one, I'm very, I wrap up soon. I will just very, as I said, I have 82 slides. I'm trying to fast on it. So this is, we can just move on. So these are the works, a sample of the work. Yeah, done. Okay, done. Yeah. So this is the thing. This is how we design, and we also count this. Okay, this is one of the models used to predict land value using the space syntax, and this is some of the master plan done. Okay. Next, and also space syntax also used the integrated urban modeling. Yeah, okay, next. So these questions on the left, we gave them. And this is the Trafalgar Square. Yes, okay, this one. Trafalgar Square, something that we involve as well. We study, we follow people, we watch people, because it was dead earlier. Next. Yeah, so before we study, it was just plain, and then to the right, and then after that, it was okay. Basically, because we study the area, yeah. Okay, next. So this was first Trafalgar Square before we analyze using space syntax, and next, and redesign the space. First day opening, next. I don't know, yeah. So we add up the staircase in the middle to help the movement pattern there. Okay, next. Yeah, so I think lesson to learn for me, people-centric design is key in urban using space syntax, and car-centric design is good some areas in Malaysia, because for people-centric design, you know, if you encourage people to walk, a lot more transaction. But a lot of in Malaysia, I think transaction you can see a lot more at petrol stations, I suppose. You know. Okay, next. Okay, so these are buildings. Also, we can use this method into building analysis. Hospital design as well, from patients to bed, yeah, patients to the nurse relation. Okay, next. So our architecture, urban sphere. So this is also what I practice, and also I, you know, impart the knowledge to my students as well. Next, into application into urban analysis. Next. Yes, next. Yeah, yeah. So we study on KL as well, area. Next, next. Okay, this one and this. Okay, wait, David, 1 minute, David. Okay, all this one, just go on. I know the last is always being pressed. Sorry about this. Okay, yeah, get on with it. Yes, next. We did Jalan Ampang. Next, right? Next, we studied the morphology structure before old and new map. Next, we compare. Okay, next. Synthesis, exit lines, static activities. We follow people. Okay, next. So this is how we allow ourselves to study, to analyze further. And then next. Go on. Next. Yeah, some of the samples I'm just showing you. Next. The last video will be only 1 minute. So this was basically hopefully wrap up. This is agent analysis. We did in our work. Some feedback I got from students using it. Because of the time, I hope the questions can be put to me later on during the session. So for me, for this presentation, is test to integrate research and design, academic industry, trust and believe in research, and try to convince others. Next. Take this my references. Thank you. And the last bit is just the video. Thank you for me. Okay, David, yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharifah. I suppose the challenge in Malaysia or in every situation in the different countries of the world is how we can have industry informed by academia, and also how we can monetize research, which is something I guess is a challenge in Malaysia. We haven't reached a point where research can be monetized, or industry can take on this seriously as it's supposed to be. Okay, so now that we've come to the end of the presentations, let us go into our main agenda, the workshop. Our technical team has pre-assigned you to respective breakout rooms, but first let me introduce our facilitators today. For small firms, Architect Wan Sofia and Architect Mustafa Kamal will be your facilitator. Our past president, Architect Chan Seong An, will be the facilitator for the large and medium firm group. Architect Datin Dr. Novena will be facilitating the discussion for the employed architects, either in private or government sectors. And Dr. Sharifah will be facilitating the session for those involved in architectural services or associated fields. So we have allocated 1 hour for the breakout sessions, after which everyone will come back to the main room. So I leave it to Salam to start the breakout session. And maybe before the breakout sessions, everyone can have a stretch, and then we can proceed with the discussions. Thank you very much. Okay, and we're back. My group was the small and large practice group. Large and medium practice group. I don't think we covered all the points, but who would like to share first? Maybe volunteers from the facilitators.
Can we share from the small practitioners group?
Yeah, go ahead, Mus.
Okay. Ajar, boleh? It may some of the boxes may be filled wrongly for what I think what we would like to share is what our findings from the group is too big now. So we have about 25 people in our group. So the repertoires was Ajar and Anne, and my colleague here is actually Architect Wan Sofia. So under discussion 1, what the members, both young or just starting their office this year, and also very senior ones were in the group also. So we also got people from Sabah, and also people from Penang and Johor Bahru, and also Kuala Lumpur and Klang Valley. So one of the things that they talk about is actually getting the local authorities to actually move into the virtual world faster. And one sample was actually they have postponed meetings because of the MCO and CMCO. So some even wrote strong letters to the KPKT and also to the minister. So they got approval the next day. So I don't know whether this can be done for all the local authorities, and maybe PAM action under the president can have a paper for KPKT. Second, some of the projects got postponed, but now the members seeing that they are doing works not just in the local boundary, but they are also looking at outside. But it really upsetted when there's actually international client that just wanting to do the work, but the borders are not opening. So maybe we need to do selective border opening. Then I think another one is what Dr. Tan, they also reiterating what Dr. Tan was saying is we need to be selective when choosing client. If they don't pay, we don't do their work, because we'll just keep it. Then some, especially the young ones now, they actually go into social marketing and also creating their own virtual addresses and virtual presence. So this now starting to get work from those sort of mechanism. Item 5, ada tak? Discussion ni discussion 1 saja. Discussion 2, it's not scrolling. Okay, okay. Discussion 2. So under item 2 about the government handouts dan juga thing, some people got rejected about the application. So because of incomplete documentation, but they found out that COVID Act is very useful to manage the projects, and they found also that the handouts in Penjana 1, 2, or 3 managed to actually give them opportunity to refocus and realign all their budgeting away from the staffing, but go into the project sustenance. And the EPF scheme is actually helpful. They asking whether they can increase from the 2,000 salary Penjana to become 3,000. And another one is to have the application for the +6 under the COVID Act 2 is actually as a blanket for all. Discussion 3. Okay, under discussion 3, we are talking about so digitalization, yes, agreed, we need to move into this, but how long are we able to sustain just virtual, because maybe there still need to be face-to-face. Then another issue that they are looking at is actually a conclusive checklist. Because right now, what happened is that the list is as though before was before COVID. They still use it during COVID, where some are actually very difficult to comply. Like for instance, expiry date of calculation of fee for plant bangunan or plant KM. So maybe that sort of time limitation should be doing away, because it is actually sometimes difficult to handle. And the tracking system of a person handling the job is also important, so that we can, like for instance, for Grab food, we know whether the rider has collected our food now in the restaurant, parking, on the way, where they are. So we need the sort of tracking system so that we know where the project is, so that we can report responsibly to our client. This one, another one is on the going through the roadblocks. Maybe we need to add on, just like we add on to our My Card, touch and go, and also our money there. Maybe our letters, the MITI card or MITI approval is in that My Card, so that the police just do the scanning without having to ask a lot of questions, because it's all are there. Another one is to extend the moratorium for another 6 months or 1 year for all type of finances. Then discussion 4. Okay, discussion 4, yes, they look at we need to promote the our face of as an architect, professional architect, to the society. So now is the time that we need to actually have the e-presence, and also doing a lot of posters to tell the real job of an architect from A to Z, or specific work, what they can do and what they will offer, so that it also will stop having all these bogus architects around. And this is quite promising, and I think this one here as PAM we can do quite extensively. I think that's about all, right?
If I may add, Mus?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, since President is here, this is maybe Dr. Izumi can help to bring forward. On the online submission system, the whole idea is actually to expand the platform now into other services. So the tracking system is one, the tracking system is quite detailed, and the other is that to open up e-consultation to replace the face-to-face counter, where all authorities actually provide a certain hours during the day where we can make appointment and do e-consultation. And the other is on the contact details through the online platform as well, where this is to avoid officers to give personal phone number or personal email, but all the emails and communication has to go through that same platform, where they have dedicated email related to our submission, to the project.
Yeah,
and this should not be limited to just OSC officers, but also all officers in the respective department, including the technical departments, like bomber, whatever. So we can see the whole tracking system works. the whole concept is actually having detailed tracking system now, so that we don't have to having to call them to check the status. Thank you.
So this is like having a project WhatsApp group now is involving the local authority lah. Thank you very much, Architect Sofia, and also thank you very much, Aja, and also the members of the small practices group. Over to you, David.
All right. So, who would like to go next? The next group to present.
Okay, maybe the graduate.
All right.
The graduate.
Novena, go
This
ahead.
is a very small group. Yeah. Okay. Maybe are you ready? Good afternoon. Okay, Assalamualaikum again. My group is very small because we expect to have about 15, but only 2 salaried architects and only 1 graduate, and happened to be TS Technologies Sufyan himself as a graduate. So we don't have a full picture of the graduates, how they fare in this, and the 2 salaried architects are all corporate members, and they are working overseas. So, and one of them are still here, stuck here because of the pandemic, and they can't go back because of the border still not open. Another one is actually working right in Singapore. So the experience, what I've gathered here is from them. We thought that even though we have done this 4 discussions and the discussion 1 to 4 with them, perhaps PAM Secretary could open and send out to more graduates to actually give more input to this. All right, so we go to discussion 1 under post-pandemic. I think what was delivered by the earlier group is similar, but here as a salaried and also as a graduate, we talk about salary cut. So there's the issues of salary cut, retrenchment, and also the issue of the contract, because like one of the salary architect was saying that he is still having a job, but he cannot go back to where he was working, and then he cannot break his contract because he would be have to pay back. So he can't find other jobs to manage. So he actually require his EPF, which in other discussion 2 we'll talk about it. So some of the proposal we talk about having maybe PAM can work out what is the medium salary that it needs to be done. So then one on retrenchment we have not discussed. Perhaps this also PAM can take out about you have first in first out, but based on the contract, perhaps you cannot do that portion. And again, maybe PAM can study this. Issue of government contract, we sort of again PAM or Labour Department can look into how to actually look into the what do you call that, the whether it is painful or to the salary architect to be at the end of the contract, they can't do anything else. Okay, so discussion 2 on the measures by the government with the Gender Conflict Act. Even though there's but they find it's not accessible, or some of them are not aware how to get it, and so they have not actually received. Okay, perhaps the areas, as mentioned now, lack of information or not properly fill in the form and so on. So again, there is something to do with bureaucracy. Another one is inadequate coverage to target group, and perhaps again, I think the study is done. So maybe by Azim about this Pinjana, I can't remember now whether do they actually benefit from this apart from KWSP or EPF. Okay, all right. Discussion 3 on technology. They're all agreeable to upskilling. In fact, the Singapore experience is talk about while this pandemic, a lot of grant and opportunity are given to upskill the human or the human human resources. Okay, so perhaps our government could do that and to look at it how to by subsidizing or by giving opportunity to upskill. Apart from, of course, we have the CPDs to go through, but it's more to training. Okay, and we discussed also that some of the software, whatever, is very expensive. So again, the fund side has to be looked into. Okay, discussion 4. Can we go on discussion 4? Okay, how do we actually give back to the society? I mean, all of us are agreeable with the times about sharing and giving, and that, but the thing is, not everybody has that mentality, and it may have to be nurtured back in universities about that of believing that when you share, when you give, you get back. Okay, and also in terms of promoting. So go again back to universities and government agencies into how to do it. We have not proposed any solution, but there are many ways of doing it which we can discuss further. And since as Sufyan is only graduate in the group, we said, hey, there's no graduate coming here, so maybe PAM has to reach out to get them into the wings again, because they are the biggest number in the market so far. I think that's all for here, but okay, here back to discussion 3, if I can expand a bit. You said that architecture profession is wide. Okay, it's very wide. So not just about digital, but it goes from A to Z, and it's up to how you specialize. You can actually build on it. So I think one of them is like project management, again, using IT, or but not to forget the human touch. So you may have all these tools to help you, but do not forget the human touch, which that's where the opportunities of giving and sharing and getting back the trust from your client is important. Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Datin Novina.
Right.
So let's go on to the next group. Who would like to volunteer? The next group, either.
Can we do the large and medium ones?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I will share my screen on this one. I just took some note point form money, so we share this one. Can you guys see the thing? Okay, I will put it on the full screen. Can be seen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, this one, how come cannot move? Okay, can. Okay, now I will just go through 3 firms which have shared with us what they have done. First one, staff moved to contract basis, allowed some to leave the firm under new contract basis. So the core staff are still on full-time salary. Some join a contractor as under VSS. Then there was the gig economy open up for some of their staff so that they can work for others also. So some source to former staff under part-time culture. So the core staff are between 4 and 5. This is instead of the double. So effectively, I think there's a 50% reduction. Permanent staff about 7. So staff cost is variable. I think like most other firms, architect firms, the staff cost is one of the highest costs in all our firms. Paid based on milestone fees, so have a higher productivity. And then some of the staff in chick breeding and wedding planner, so some do drawing for developers also. So people always find a way if they are given the opportunity. That's the idea behind that. Then another firm is, I think this one is from the president. So they already anticipated the recession in 2018, but the only thing I think they didn't anticipate is the COVID-19 hitting us at the same time. I think this is the double whammy that I think a lot of us are suffering from. So all projects will complete by 2017. Therefore, the 250 staff, they actually move a lot of them to the contract basis, except the core staff. So with proper planning is financial planning is very important. So every year from the start of the 2016, they started letting go about 40 to 50 staff, offer VSS. So sometimes every time you offer VSS, the best talents are leaving. So I think this one, my own experience is also the same thing. All your best staff they are very smart. They can go out and start their own firm, and many of them even join contractors to do design and build. So many a time we lose our big talent staff. And so I think for MAA, they lost their medical planner and many of their BIM trained. So I think the same thing is happening to my office. So we actually do internal training for many of our BIM staff. So the minute the recession start, they also start to, the minute they see that the salary is being reduced and hours reduced, they also start resigning and taking up job outside also, okay? So there is some retrenchment. So the recession 2018, 2000 affected them more than the current COVID, okay? So the last one, of course, would be the last, which is the last one. Okay, there was a salary cut, which is Dr. Tan one. But by May, they also reinstated back the salary and go back to full pay. Some staff left, but not so much reduction. But some go to they managed to get some more work. And in 2021, started using the reserves again. So it can sustain because overseas job and can support from firms operation in Vietnam and Cambodia. Indonesia have a good leadership and have seen growth. And so I think like all of us, we can see Indonesia as one of the key markets that we should start to approach really, actually, if we want to export our services. Now, these are some of the government policy proposals. I think from the other groups also, we noticed that local authorities are not open most of the time, and this actually lowers our productivity. I got a simple conversion of 4-story shops into a maternity center. It has taken me more than a year. I still have not got the building plan approval. That's how bad it is now. And then this president say Khazanah has increased cash reserves. That means the government is not spending their money. After tender, no award. That's a big problem. And suggestion that Bank Negara should loosen the housing loan, open up for young buyers to revive the housing sector. So this is something which I think PAM should be approaching the government for. Parik said they should be open tender except for projects less than 10 million. GLC is now approaching architects to appoint sub-consultants and contractors. This will give full incentive to the benefits of using BIM. So I think this one is a proposal from Parik. Eric said incentive to have no building plan approach, and we can kickstart the economy by giving tax rebates of 50% to developers to start work within the first year. Veritas suggested stop appointing foreign architects, e.g. for the Penang BIG. I think that one also cannot move like in this type of climate. Jeffrey, commercial law assessment is very high and should be lowered. Okay, so these are some of the key suggestions from this group. Loan moratorium and loan. Now, these are some of the incentives which have been very useful to architectural firms. The loan moratorium and loan restructuring, helped a lot. MAA, unfortunately, they say they did not get any of the benefits because they have more than 75 staff and not an SME. Penjana for staff less than 4K, I think it helped a lot of firms in their salary payment. Government policy also helped. This is the major government policy that helped. So the suggestion to government should be that should extend the moratorium for another 6 months, especially regarding the housing loan and car loan. I think for both architectural firms and also the staff. Yeah, I think that's all I managed to record. Thank you. I'll give it back to you. Go back to
Architect Chan. So last, Dr. Sharifa's group.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David. Is Shafira sharing our group session? Basically, I just want to wrap up. A very quick one. Like last year, yeah, Shafika. Like last year, this group is the happiest one. Is the happiest one. They are glad with the diverse practice that just another niche from design, whatever it is that your creativity, mind, and even in their own self or the self-proclamation about themselves. AR Sharif Alawiya likes to travel, So she turns travel to practice. I remember like Disneyland as well, like Disneyland. You know, you like entertainment, you turn it into business. So I think it's something like is actually very useful. Mr. Sipili doing something for me related to farming, and now I think also owning a lot of things as well. And Mr. Siddiq also, you know, young practitioners as well before. Now to turning chicken farming, organic one, is more like elevating because the thinking, the creative thinking of being an architect. So he developed better upskill the program of the farming itself. And we are also glad to have Mr. Kai, Izzy Kai from Fiziwu, fashion designer, a famous fashion designer. I think he's one of the lucky ones as well. And fashion design becoming more easier for architects, basically, and less competitive, and no regrets. So basically, from the documents that we have, yeah, I think Shafika, I can't see clearly, but never mind. One of the takeaway is about engaging with the community. For myself as well, community also relate to the architecture and industry and academia, research and practice as well. So how we reach out. So for those young architects, especially, yeah, for those who in the line of architecture, when these things happen, seek out and be more proactive into engaging yourself with the community. I think that's all I can say. Almas or Mr. Sharifa, if I have something, but is that so one also needs to set own blueprint. So digital or whatever it is, then they have done it themselves as well. So I think it's good to have these people in this workshop to inspire others doing, not necessarily architecture. The world is bigger than that. Thank you.
All right, so we've come to the end, and there are a lot of suggestions, so the solutions or positive comments made through the discussion. I was in the medium and large practice group, and some of the issues discussed are quite common among the firms, and I hope that everyone has received something positive from today's workshop. I'd like to invite maybe our president to say a few words before we conclude, because some of the things are suggestions for maybe council or president to take up for the authorities and next step forward.
Okay, thank you, David. Of course, at the beginning, not many people want to talk, but when everybody start to warm up, then we start to feel that not enough time. Well, I think this is a good platform for us to discuss. It's just that I think maybe in future we can have a session where actually we can have everybody to discuss in detail in same group. Otherwise, we do not know what was discussed by the graduate and by smaller practitioners and big practitioners. I think it's better to put everybody in one group and we discuss everything in future. Just now, I just like to respond on the submission, local authority submission for approval. We have the focus group on that, working on that. We engage the government. Of course, there are a lot of issues. Government are aware. I mean, when I say government, I mean the KPKT level, they are aware of all these issues, but implementation on the ground that they still cannot resolve it because the local authority is like different government by local government by itself. So whatever policy implemented by the federal government at KPKT level, not necessarily implemented by the local government. So we are still pursuing KPKT and some of the local government on those matters. So I think what Sophia mentioned about online tracking. Currently, if the system is already there. So if you have done the submission through online, then you can do the tracking. However, the system is not as detailed as what we expect, because some of the focus group members proposed to the government that we should know after we submitted the plan, where is the plan now, whether it is with technical department, external agency, or building department, then they have created this online tracking system, but with not much detail in the system. But you can try. You can, if you have done the submission, you log in to the OEC online system, then you can track what happened to your plan. Okay. Then the online discussion with the technical staff. We always say that as a professional architect or even the engineer, we should have certain knowledge. At least we must possess a certain knowledge that we don't need to go to the technical person or local authority to ask for everything. I just also like to mention here that whenever you thought that you get the technical information from the local authority, it is not always correct. Local authority the officer or the technical people maybe give the information in their perspective, but their perspective is not correct in terms of the regulation or the rules. Even with the bomber officer, local government technical agency, Shabas or TMB. So that's why it is important for you yourself to find out the information by getting the information from the basic source, which is the laws and regulation. Okay, on top of that, if you are still not clear, then you can check with local authority. Even bomber officer, in our session with bomber say that too many architects come to see their officer and expected to be taught how to do the submission, how to do the fire safety design. So in the first place, I think we as architects, we ourselves need to learn first. If there is any ambiguity, if you want to seek more clarification, then it's okay. But do not go to this technical department asking for the basic things. So I think that's among the things that I want to respond. And of course, what was suggested by Sophia to have online technical discussion, that will be good. But I'm not sure if the local authority want to accept this. I know we have discussed about this before. One of the reasons they say they don't want to be liable with whatever information that they want to share, because when it is an online discussion, it can be recorded. So they try to avoid that. So they don't want to commit themselves. The other thing is that when the channel is open, then they will be overwhelmed with a lot of people that want to have technical discussion. So we did discuss about this, but there are some of the consideration, some of the things that they are still considering. So the rest, I hope that those who have the technical issues about plan submission can always forward the issue to the professional practice committee, so we can bring forward to the government and relevant agency. Thank you very much. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Dato' President. So we have already come to the end of our program for today. We hope that this workshop has been helpful and of assistance to everyone. Bearing in mind the virus is still with us, so let us observe the SOPs, keep within our social bubbles as much as possible, and stay safe and healthy. So have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
David.
everybody.
Salam.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
for
Thanks, Almas.
Thank you,
thank you
Almas.
for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Izumi. See you.
Thank you.
Mus.
Okay, yep.
Okay, bye-bye. Hey, thanks for your time.
Bye.